Haribol, namaste. Hopefully you can hear me tonight. I'm just going to, seeing as we had such a disaster last week, I'm just going to check on my iPad to make sure you can hear me. Okay, Haribol, Krishna Krishna, Haribol, Krishna Krishna, Haribol, Krishna Krishna. Haribol, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear. Oh, loud and clear. Okay, cool. Thank you. I was just nuts. Really sorry you couldn't hear last week. Mati Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Itinamini Ama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prastaya Utale Mati Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Itinamini Namo Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Namine Karuna Sarupaya Radha Krishna Vistaya Namasita Sarupananda Paramahansa Namine Karuna Sarupaya Radha Krishna Vistaya Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Sesha Sunyavare Askacha Keshatarine Bhajashi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Asiriko Bhaktavrinda Bhajashi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vyasiko Bhaktivinoda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Asiko Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajika Satara Sata Shishima Jagakuru Siddhasarupananda Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajika Satara Sata Shishima His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Gauda Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Asadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Nitai Goswami Mission Ki Jai. Navadvita Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath, Shama Kun Radha Kun, Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Ki Jai, Mathuradam Ki Jai, Mayapur Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. All glories to assemble devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assemble devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assemble devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Hare Bol. Amagina Timarandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militanyena Tajmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Statpitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hiri Priye Vanchakapa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavenbhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. For speaking, first offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Jagatguru Siddhasarupananda Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada is the mercy manifestation of Lord Chaitanya. He is very dear to Radha and Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are like wish-fulfilling trees, able to fulfill all the desires of the fallen living entities, and are full of compassion upon them. So Haribol everyone, Namaste. Thanks for watching. And if you tried to watch last week, please accept my humble apologies. I screwed up the audio and no one could hear me for a whole hour while I went on chanting and speaking and blissfully completely unaware of what was going on. So my apologies for that. If I was watching, that would have been like really frustrating. So anyway, I'll work to make sure that doesn't happen again. So anyway, so if you watched last week and you're watching this week, well, thank you so much for your patience and tolerance, and please forgive me for my mistake. So actually, last week I got got kind of passionate about a few topics, so it's kind of to try and remember what they all were and repeat them again this week is going to be a bit difficult. But anyway, so we're continuing on with our discussion of Bhagavad Gita chapter 5, which is entitled Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. And we're up to, a section that's of 4 verses, which is about the 3 doers. And so I did talk a little bit last week about, so Bhagavad Gita is quite Upanishadic. So the Upanishads are what's known as the Jnanakan section of the Vedic literatures. So the Vedas themselves are known as Karmakand. They're mainly about sacrifices, and they're not very much about devotional service. They're more about how to attain good sons, or to a good wife, or how to go to heaven. Heaven, not Vaikuntha, but rather the heavenly planets, where the standard of enjoyment is so much better than on this planet. And so that's the, they're religious in the sense that they're the instructions of the Supreme Lord, but they're more to do with, enjoying this world, getting better situation in this world, but doing so in accordance with religious instructions and religious principles and processes and guidelines and so on. So just as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita at the end of chapter 16, I think it's 16:24, that one should know what should be done or what not should be done according to Shastra. So tasmak shastram pramanam te kaya vyavasita natha shastra viranoktam kama katu miha hase. So, chapter 16 is about the demoniac, the divine and the demoniac personalities, and in particular about the demoniac. And so Krishna concludes that chapter by saying, well, one can know what should be done or what not should be done, kaya, by following the principles contained in the religious scriptures, the Shastras. So anyway, so the Vedas are like Shastras, and they contain principles on what should be done and what shouldn't be done. But the Upanishads, so in the sense, then the Karmakand section is about, regulated sense enjoyment within this material world. So karma. So there's 3 basic Vedic principles: dharma, which is religiosity, morality, so doing things that are beneficial, that are not harmful. So this is dharma. Then kama, K-A-M-A, is about sense enjoyment, enjoying oneself. But still it's done within the context of dharma. So it's not about enjoying yourself at the expense of others, although in one sense oftentimes sense enjoyment is at the expense of others. But it's done in accordance with scripture. And then artha is economic development. So of of those 3, dharma is like the platform that everything else is built upon. Then there is artha, economic development, right? Making money. Right? If one doesn't, it's hard to have enjoyment if one doesn't have money. One's generally then, if one's in an impoverished situation, one is generally not very happy and not really able to think about anything much else. There's kind of a standard. If you don't have food and you're suffering the pangs of hunger and malnourished, then it's very difficult to, have sense enjoyment. So, so Dharma is the platform, Artha, economic development, and then if one has economic development and is acting in accordance with Dharma, then there can be pleasure, karma, sense enjoyment. So these three are the basic goals of life. The Purusharthas, the goal of human life, according to the Vedic literatures, according to the Vedas, right? And some of the corollary Vedic literatures. And then the Upanishads are about mukti. So this is the fourth goal of life, liberation. So Dharma, Artha, Kama. And then for when you've realized that, economic development, pursuit of pleasure, and a following of religious principles that elevate ones to the heavenly planets, it's all temporary. I may go to the heavenly planets, but then once my good karma in my bank account, in my karmic bank account, once my good karma is used up, then I have to return back to this middle planet, this earthly planet, which is a world of mixed happiness and distress. And, we never know what our situation is. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. So this planet, Earth planets, are very mixed, and bad things do happen. Even in the heavenly planets, reading Srimad Bhagavatam and the different Puranic literatures, and even the Itihasas, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, we can see that even within the heavenly planets, there's distress. Although it's very sort of heavenly and live for a long time, there isn't like this big challenge to get foodstuffs. The women are very beautiful. The men are very handsome. Still, as we read about the different Ekadasi days, how somebody falls from heaven because they commit some offense against Indra or some other demigod. They do something wrong and then they fall. They fall from the heavenly planets down to the earthly planets. And, and on the earthly planets, one can fall further. One can lose the human form of life and take on animal species. As what Krishna describes this in chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita. So there's no certainty. So anyway, a person realizing this then begins to ask the question, which is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, Sutra 1, Om Athato Brahma Jignasa, or Athato Brahma Jignasa. Now is the time to inquire into Brahma, the absolute truth. Why is now the time? Well, because we have the opportunity of the human form of life, and we have facility to make inquiry. We can understand that, that's another reason why it's now, is more specifically, it's because if a person is coming to this realization that this life in this world, in this material world, is essentially miserable. I'm experiencing the threefold miseries. Miseries caused by my own body and mind. Miseries caused by other living entities, and miseries caused by natural and social forces. So we come to this realization, birth, disease, old age, and death, those miseries, all the different kinds of miseries, just the miseries of relationships. Anyway, I won't go into all that in depth, but anyway, if we've coming to that realization, and then I'm seeking into the absolute truth, well now is the time to inquire into the absolute truth, and particularly for persons who have begun on the spiritual path. So now is the time. Don't stop. Pursue it. It's like Prahlad Maharaj talking to his little schoolmates. We're just children. We just want to play. Prahlad Maharaj points out, well, no. Now you want to play. When you get older, then you want to engage in sports and other frivolous activities, and then you become attracted to members of the opposite sex, and then you have family, and you have children, and then you're busily working to provide for everyone. And then when you get old, you begin to suffer various miseries, and you're engaged in, grandchildren and extended family, and reminiscing about the good old days when I was young, And so now is the time to inquire. And when a person does begin to inquire into the absolute truth, and they're seeking liberation from this material world, from the miseries of this material world, and of course it's not all, miserable. There's some happiness here, but the happiness is actually not truly satisfying. It's not eternal. It's not ananda. It's not bliss, ongoing, continuous bliss. It's like fleeting, comes and goes, like the winter and summer season, sukha dukkha daha, sitoshna sukha dukkha daha. Happiness and distress come just like sitoshna, winter and summer. So the Bhagavad Gita 2:14. So when a person comes to that point, then they're seeking mukti, or liberation. And this is the Upanishads, the Jnanakan section of the Vedas. They're very philosophical and about Brahman and attaining Brahman. Very much, in many ways, many of the Upanishads, out of the 108, there's 8 Upanishads that are about bhakti and devotional service and Krishna. The other 100 are very much about Brahman and liberation, merging into the Brahman, into the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. So, in many ways, the point I was coming to is that Bhagavad Gita is in many ways also Upanishadic. In the language used, in fact, throughout many of the texts, some of the verses are actually, can be found in the different Upanishads, Katha Upanishad, Swasvatara Upanishad. And, an Upanishad means to sit close, so it's it's conversation between a spiritual master and a disciple. And, so Bhagavad Gita is like that. And so why I'm sort of talking about all this is because in chapter 5, it's quite Upanishadic. Krishna is talking about Sankhya. He's talking about philosophical concepts, that are in Sankhya. Sankhya is analysis. And so this Sankhya is about, the embodied soul realizing that they're separate and apart from the body, and that they, the previous verse, text 13, when the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of the 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. So this is a bit of a philosophical concept. Sankhya means analysis and the distinction between the spirit, soul, and the body. So what I spoke about last week when you all couldn't hear me and I had to delete the video was like Bhagavad Gita, although it contains a lot of this sort of philosophy, which in some ways can be taken or considered to be a little bit dry or difficult to understand or a bit Upanishadic, as compared to, say, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is, Canto 10, very much about the pastimes of Krishna, which are very attractive. Krishna's pastimes are all attractive. But this Krishna's speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, this is a pastime of Krishna. So Krishna's speaking is transcendental and all attractive. And, I spoke last week, except you couldn't hear me, about Lord Chaitanya's tour of South India when he went to Sri Rangam. Sri Rangam is like, one of the largest temple complexes in the world, certainly within India. And, the deity there is Lord Ranganath, Mahavishnu, with Lakshmi. And the Brahmins in Sri Rangam are very Brahminical, very strict, very knowledgeable, know the Shastras very well, understand Sanskrit, experts in Sanskrit, Sanskrit pronunciation, Sanskrit grammar. Right? It takes many years to learn Sanskrit grammar. And, so, in fact, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, I met a disciple, or I know a disciple of Bhaktivedanta Swami's. Bhaktivedanta Swami actually sent him to South India, to Sri Rangam, to study under the Brahmanas there, to learn, about Brahminical standards and Brahminical practices and performance of different yagnas or sacrifices and so on. So Bhaktivedanta Swami was aware of the very high standard that the South Indian Brahmins have. So anyway, when Lord Chaitanya went to Sri Rangam and his tour of South India, where he spent several months, but one day he was going to the Lord Ranganath's temple, and so actually, just to digress just for a moment before I carry on with that. So in these cities like Sri Rangam and Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan, Navadvip, everything revolves around the deity. Oftentimes the deity will own land. The deity may own lots of land, and then the land is rented out to different people to use, or it's used directly, for growing crops for the deity, for the temple, or to earn income to support the deities. So, and then there's different, in Jagannath Puri in particular, and probably in Sri Rangam, I'm not so aware about Sri Rangam, but in Jagannath Puri, there's, different clans or tribal groups. There may have been tribes in the past, although there actually are still tribes in the Jagannath Puri area. And so these different clans or groups, they have specific duties to perform for Lord Jagannath. So often it's seasonal, so every year they'll be performing this particular duty, and it's hereditary. Jagannath's servants, it's passed down from generation to generation. For example, the people who make the Ratha Yatra carts, this is done every year. They don't reuse last year's cart. They build a new one, and there's carvers and so on. So this is passed down from generation to generation. The different brahmanas in the temple who sit in the temple mandap and perform rituals and so on, or explain things to different visitors to the Jagannath temple, the cooks, and so clothing makers. When Lord Jagannath changes his body, the people who go out and search for the particular trees, bring the tree back, the carvers. So these are all traditional services performed by different groups on a hereditary basis. And so this is the same in Sri Rangam. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya, he's in Sri Rangam, and he goes to the Lord Ranganath's temple, and there's this very nice devotee, with a Bhagavad Gita, and he's crying. And he's shedding tears. And there's different brahmanas. I was talking about the expert South Indian brahmanas who excellent Sanskrit pronunciation, and anyway, they were laughing at this Brahmin. So this poor Brahmin, humble Brahmin, sometimes Bhaktivedanta Swami in lectures describes him as being illiterate, although in the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, where it's narrated, he's not actually illiterate. He could read, but he couldn't pronounce the Sanskrit properly, and his understanding wasn't that great. So anyway, but he's holding Bhagavad Gita and he's crying, and these brahmanas are mocking him. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya speaks to this brahman and asks him, well, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And he responds that as he thinks of Krishna as Partha Sarathi. So Partha is a name of Arjuna. He's the son of Kunti. Another name of Kunti's birth name is Pritha. And so Partha means the son of Pritha. And, his mother, Kunti, she became known as Kunti because she was, her father, Surasena, I think his brother or one of his relatives didn't have any children. So, and he had lots of children, so Kunti became, or Pritha, became like the in Hawaii they have what they call hanai. It means kind of like adopted, but it's not necessarily legally adopted. But anyway, so Pritha was given to Kunti Bhoja, and so Kunti then is known as Kunti, the daughter of Kunti Bhoja. And anyway, so this Brahmana is saying to Lord Chaitanya, he's thinking of, he's crying as he thinks about Krishna as Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. And how wonderful Krishna is, that he's, that he's God himself, the Supreme Lord. Yet here he is, acting as the chariot driver and taking instructions from Arjuna, his friend and his devotee. Krishna is feeling so indebted to his devotees that he's rendering service to them. As Lord Vishnu says in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the pastime of Ambarisa Maharaj and oh God, his name, Devasa Muni, who's attempted to harm the devotee of Krishna, of Lord Vishnu, Ambarisa Maharaj. And so he's going to curse him, and was actually anyway, so terrible kind of pastime. But anyway, so he says, Lord Vishnu says to Devasa Muni that the devotees are my heart and I am their heart. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, when Krishna, speaking to the gopis, that he just says to them that there's no way that he can repay their love for him. They love him so much that he can't repay it. He just says, let your own glorious deeds be your own reward. Because they love him so much. So Krishna loves his devotees. So he's loving Arjuna and he's rendering service to his devotee. And so this Brahmana is thinking about how, as he meditates and reflects upon Krishna's love for his devotee and for his acting as Arjuna's chariot driver and his speaking Bhagavad Gita and giving these wonderful instructions that to Arjuna and to everyone for all time, that we can hear and seek to understand and apply to our lives. So Lord Chaitanya was very pleased with him and said, yes, you understand Bhagavad Gita. Whereas the arrogant Brahmins mocking him clearly don't. So we can meditate upon this, as we consider Bhagavad Gita. In fact, you can worship Bhagavad Gita is worshipable. You can worship it. Place it on your altar. Worship the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says that Ajashyati chaya imam damyam samvadamavayo jnana yagnena tainaham ishtasha miti me medihi, that those who study this transcendental conversation, this damyam samvada, or this conversation about Dhamma, worship me by the sacrifice of knowledge, jnana yagnena. So this study of Bhagavad Gita is actually worship of Krishna, using our intelligence. We're sacrificing our intelligence and our time, and our efforts to seek to understand Krishna's wonderful instructions. So tonight's verse is text 14. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Nakata tvam nakamani lokasya srijati prabhu nakamafala samyogam swabhavastu pravartate. Nakata tvam nakamani lokasya srijati prabhu nakamafala samyogam swabhavastu pravartate. So one of the Bhaktivedanta Swami is taking this as the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So when I say Bhaktivedanta Swami is taking it, there's the word here in the second pada of the verse, Lokasya Srijati Prabhu. So Prabhu, it means master, or the master of the city of the body, or the Lord, the mighty one, the Atma or self, Lord, Parameshwara, the Supreme Lord. So the different commentators on Bhagavad Gita, the Vaishnava commentators, several of them take Prabhu to be referring to the Supreme Lord, to God, to Krishna, which actually is quite clearly in the next verse, in 5:15. The word used there is, I think it's Vasi, but let me just look to confirm. Vibhu. So Vibhu is the Supreme Lord, another name, another word for the Supreme Lord. Whereas in text 13, Krishna is very clearly talking about the Dehi, the embodied living entity. Like the word for body is Deha and the possessor of the body is Dehi. So in text 13, Krishna is speaking about the Dehi, and in text 15, he's talking about Vibhu. And so in text 14, some commentators are taking it that Krishna is referring to the Supreme Lord, and others are taking it, as Bhaktivedanta Swami is taking it, that Prabhu is referring to the embodied spirit. So Ramanuja Acharya and Baladeva Vijayabhusana take it as referring to the embodied living entity, and others are taking it as referring to the Supreme Lord. So, but in either case, it doesn't really matter. So in the cases Bhaktivedanta Swami is taking it, which is carrying on from text 13, the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So I think I discussed in the previous class or past couple of classes, it's like, well, this idea of who is the actor, who is the doer. That's why this section, this series of verses, we're calling it about the doers, the three doers. So who is the doer, right? Is it the spirit soul? Right? We talk with, our basic sort of first lesson when we first come in contact with the disciples of Srila Prabhupada is like, oh, you're not the body, you're spirit soul. Okay, you're pure spirit soul. You're covered by a subtle material body and a gross physical body. So then the question becomes, well, is the spirit soul the doer then? Well, no, the doer is separate from the spirit soul. The Dehi is separate from the body. Right? And as Krishna said in text 13, he was, that the embodied living being resides happily in the city of 9 gates, neither working nor causing work to be done. Okay, well, so the spirit soul, and I think I spoke a couple of weeks ago, that the spirit soul is like the passenger in the chariot. This material body is like a chariot. The senses are the horses, the reins is the mind, and the driver is the intelligence. And we're like a passenger sitting in the chariot, and the driver is taking us different places. This is sometimes the analogy is given, the spirit soul is like the driver of the car, but but actually that's not, in terms of being able to explain to a new person or without getting to all sorts of deep philosophy about Sankhya and who's really the actor, so that's an easy way for people to understand. Well, no, you're not the car. You're the driver of the car, right? You're different from the car. You're not the body, right? You're not the car. So from that point of view, that's a good analogy. But the sort of deeper, more analytical or Sankhyaite kind of view of it is no, you're the passenger in the car. You're not actually the driver. Right? The spirit soul is neither causing the body to act or causing others to act. Right? So then the question becomes, well, is the Supreme Lord, is Krishna the actor then? Is he the doer? Is he the one who's causing all this doing? And so in text 15, and some commentators are taking this text 14 to say, no, Krishna's not the doer. He's not. Of course, he's created the overall framework of this material world, but he's not the cause of you and I acting. Right? We're acting as a result of our past karma and our particular desires and so on. So anyway, which I'll go into more in just a moment. So the kind of question is, okay, well, if the spirit soul is not the agent of action, and if the Supreme Lord is not the doer, then who is the doer? Right? And so the answer is given in this text 13, that all this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Or the Sanskrit word is swabhava. Swabhava. So this is modes of material nature, or spontaneousness in the sense of nature's spontaneousness, or their own acquired nature, or the conditioned nature. Okay, so what this is about, like we all have our own nature, right? This is kind of like obvious, right? We have our subtle body. So our subtle body, we normally describe subtle body as being comprised of, mind, right? Just that's connected to the senses, that's bringing everything in and kind of processing it, right? And never ending thinking about this, that, and the other thing. And then you have the intelligence, which is finer, which is analyzing and directing, making decisions, right? Or it's the faculty of decisiveness, making decisions, analysis, and so on. And then ahankara, the false ego, right? This sense that I am the doer. We're talking about who's the doer. Well, ahankara actually means I doer. I am the doer. Aham, I am. I, kara, doer. So I am the doer. So this is a subtle body. But this subtle body is also comprised of our subtle senses and our subtle, like our, in a sense, our karma is in there, right? The impressions that we bring from past lives, like samskaras, impressions. Our nature, right? It's like Krishna describes in chapter 3 that, what will repression accomplish? We all have our own nature. What is this nature? So Bhaktivedanta Swami is describing it here, this swabhava, our own nature. Our nature is describing it as the modes of material nature. So why is this, right? Because the three modes of nature that Krishna describes at length in chapters 14, chapters 14, 17, and for a good portion of chapter 18, Krishna describes the modes of material nature at length: sattva, goodness, rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. So this, with modes of material nature, like the Sanskrit word is guna. And guna means quality, it can mean modes, but it's kind of like qualities. So what are our qualities? Right? What are the qualities inherent in our material nature? Right? And according to the particular mix of the modes of nature that we have, then this is why we all have different natures. Sometimes we're more in the mode of goodness, and sometimes in the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, but there's a mixture there. And each species of life is a particular combination of the different modes of material nature. And each person's individual personality, our nature, right? We talk about a person's nature. So what is this nature? It's our personality that's coming from our past karma, it's from our samskaras or impressions on the mind. Like a child takes birth, they have their nature immediately. Right? Like you have these little, got a little grandson, a couple of granddaughters. They're all unique individuals. This is obvious, we all know this, right? Everybody's a unique individual. Everything about everyone is just unique. There's no two people who are the same. Even you have twins, right? They still have their own unique personal natures, their own unique identity. So this nature that we have is our material nature, our material mindset, so to speak. And how does it arise? It arises because we're covered by ignorance, ajnana, right? Being away from Krishna, being in this material world, we were covered by ignorance. So as a result of ignorance, we take on a particular kind of material, gross and subtle, material bodies. And so it's this subtle material body under the influence of material nature and the modes of nature that is actually acting. And so we are like the passenger, while our intelligence and mind, our nature, is acting. So we aren't the actor. We're sitting there, we're the passenger. So this is, Sankhya. And this is what Krishna is speaking about in this section of Bhagavad Gita. So I hope that's clear. And thank you for listening and watching. And we'll continue next week. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol, namaste. Thank you so much.